Aloha everyone. Welcome. I'm Abaya. And today we are going to continue our Soulful Spine journey. We've spent the past couple weeks waking up a lot of awareness through the spine, and today we'll continue with that awareness as we explore spinal rotation and whole body twisting and spiraling. One important note, and I hope this helps you, Jatila, and everyone that has spines, as we wake up awareness of each vertebra, it doesn't mean we're like trying to max out our twist or our extension or our flexion, but really almost like wake up more support. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but especially if like your spine has been really sore after these classes, or other muscles in your body have been cranky, think about each time I cue awareness of the spine, of just like feeling lighter and more spacious, and don't even worry about pushing further. So with that, we can begin. Please turn to your right. Move any props out of the way. A blanket will be handy later on for your knees, and 2 blocks will be handy later on for making some of our poses more fluid and effortless. And then we'll meet on our back, and please feel free, of course, to prop yourself up at all if it's more comfortable to have your head slightly elevated. Find any comfortable position here. And one thing that I've been noticing some people may benefit from is actually placing the blanket underneath their shoulders and head a little bit. Sometimes, especially if you're in a forward position a lot, it can be really uncomfortable on the head and neck to not have a pillow. So give yourself that opportunity. And then my pose of choice is knees bent, feet wide, and then knocking the knees in. But please do anything that feels comfortable, perhaps hands on the belly or one on the heart. And if you feel comfortable, you can close the eyes and let this be an opportunity to notice how you're really feeling. This can be physical, it can be mental, emotional, energetic. Just let your breath sort of dance with your inner sensations. Maybe you don't know how you're feeling. Imagine with each breath that you can start to scan through the body, through the heart, through the space between the eyebrows. And if the mind is carrying an extra weight today, or you need a little extra help becoming present, try elongating your exhale. And let it be gentle. Everything in class today should feel gentle and never forceful. One method for lengthening the exhale is to just slow it down. Same amount of breath, just exits a little slower, and you might feel that sinking, releasing kind of feeling. And let's just breathe in silence for 1 minute. That might be about 5 to 10 breaths, depending on you. And then we'll start to add in movement, trying to keep our breath smooth and steady. If you're following along with the playlist, you can hit play on the first track, or actually the second track, I'm sorry, and make sure it's set to repeat. And then we'll begin waking up sensation and waking up the deep core. So if the knees aren't already bent, please bend the knees, and then we'll all walk the feet in closer to the hips. The feet can also come closer towards one another, so they're about hips distance apart, or whatever feels comfortable for you. Bring your hands to your hip points, so the front of the hip bones, and take a moment just to breathe before moving at all. Assess the positioning of the pelvis and the spine, and then bring your awareness down to the sacrum. That's the triangular bone at the base of the spine in between the hip bones, and start to shift the weight towards the tailbone, and then rock it back up towards the top of the sacrum, which is where the low back meets the pelvis. And start to rock along that bony plate, forward and back. And the more you wake up support there and awareness, the smaller your movements can get. And start to feel a place where the sacrum is able to become flush with the yoga mat. This is a neutral pelvis, and it shouldn't feel forceful, shouldn't feel like the spine is flattening aggressively towards the mat or anything like that. And then try to maintain this neutral pelvis through your next few breaths. A really big breath can even want to tilt the pelvis down towards the tailbone, and so let the back of the core get a little stronger. Bring a little more awareness into the back of the rib cage, all the way down to the low back. And then with an exhale, play with just taking the weight out of one heel. And then inhale, set it down, and then exhale, the other heel lifts. And just play with this back and forth, and start to notice as the one heel lifts, if you can feel the back of that leg, that calf and that hamstring starting to fire. And it's okay if you can't. It's just about starting to shine the light of your awareness in that space. And then eventually, without rushing, the next time your right heel lifts, without moving the right foot, just drag the foot towards the sit bone a little bit, and then maybe you'll feel the hamstring a little bit more. And then release and try the other side. So it's just a little unweight of the heel, and then an isometric drag to stimulate the back line up through the leg. And then you can play with that for as long as you want, especially if it's interesting to feel your hamstrings more. We can add on our traditional leg lift. So the next time one heel unweights and you take that little drag, you can start to float that foot up. I like to do it on an exhale. Little goes a long way. And then set the foot back down and go to the other side. And just do a few on each side. Everyone's moving so well. It really shifts our perspective, right? Hopefully you can start to feel more sensation in the body and that patience where you're truly getting so much stronger here, even though it might not feel like what we expect that to feel like. And then we're going to do a little experiment. So place both feet down and release the effort. Bring your arms to T, palms face up. And you don't have to worry about the deep core here. Take a nice relaxed spinal twist, dropping the knees to one side, perhaps gazing the other way, and just notice how this feels. I'm noticing actually that I don't love the way it feels in my top knee. So if you notice that, you can adjust the positioning of the top leg. And notice the hips, notice the spine, notice the rib cage. Maybe you notice how far down the knees go. And then go the other way. And then we'll come back to center. We'll do the deep core exercise and go straight into the twist. And you'll take another snapshot, just noticing how that changes the twist. So let's start by unweighting the right heel. Neutral pelvis, exhale to slowly float the right foot any amount. Feel the deep core. And then use your next exhale to start to tip the knees over to the left. And see if your knees stop a little sooner. See if you can feel how the legs connect into the pelvis, and the pelvis relates to the core, and the core relates to the shoulders. And then come back to center, switch the legs, and twist the other way. And we'll play with this for a few rounds. And just for fun, when you come through center, you can add a little Seta Bandha Sarvangasana, just peeling the pelvis, and then one vertebra at a time away from the floor, and then releasing back down, positioning the arms, deep core into the twist. And each time you repeat the twist, and it's okay to keep the arms at T as you go through bridge pose, just to make the transition a little smoother. And then each time you repeat the deep core twist, just try to feel how the whole body is participating, and there's not this sense of the pelvis and the knees just dropping, but you can really feel what's waking up in the core as you spiral, and less really is more. And take one more to each side. And then we'll meet in our bridge pose, and you don't have to rush to get there. And if you've been in bridge for a while, you're welcome to release out. If you're not in bridge yet, you can make your way there. And where we're going after bridge is just a nice shaking of the limbs so the hands and feet can float towards the sky. You can start gently shaking out the arms and the legs. And then just for good measure, before we change positions, let's play with a single leg bridge. And this is really tricky because you only have one leg to support the same amount of weight as a normal bridge. So hug the left knee into the chest, and this is going to keep the pelvis neutral, which is helpful. Bring your awareness into your right foot, anchor your right big toe. Let the right knee start to drift wide towards the toe next to the pinky. Feel the hips lift, and then slowly lift one vertebra at a time, and just notice what's strengthening in the back of the right hip. Maybe you can feel the right hamstring. You can even drag the right heel in towards the body a little bit to stimulate that support. And then release. Just for fun, open arms to T and go right into that core supported twist before we do the other side. And then float back to center, swap the legs. And now that you know where we're going, take your time exploring the second side. Often we have one glute that's stronger than the other, so just notice if it feels easier or harder. And option after the pelvis releases to then twist the other way. So whatever knee is lifted, you'll that leg will be on top as you twist. And that was kind of fun. So option to repeat that sequence one more time on each side, where you have the single leg bridge into the twist, and maybe one of those movements is better for your body, or maybe there's even something else that your body's craving. Just try to feel a sense of connection of the legs into the core through the extension and through the spiral. After you've done both sides, we'll take one more leg shake. Just for fun, take a natural breath in and Om as you exhale, and see if you can feel sort of the shaking of the Om from the shaking of the limbs. Om. Release the legs down and scoot away from me. So you're at the far edge of the mat, and maybe the right side of the body even comes off the mat a little bit. Lift your left arm overhead, extend your left leg, and push into the right foot to slowly roll onto the belly. Hands stack, elbows wide, forehead to the backs of the hands. And just take a couple of breaths here. And feel the belly on the mat. And let the low back relax. Let the spine relax. We're going to play with Bhujangasana, just focusing on the thoracic vertebra. And less is more here, so don't push it, don't force anything, but we're just going to try to wake up a little more awareness on the spine that the rib cage attaches to. So to begin, start to seal the pelvis down into the floor, and you don't want this to feel rigid or intense, but try to feel the pubic bone making contact with the mat. And then imagine that you're on your back, and you could do a sit-up here. Try doing a sit-up, and feel how the space between the rib cage and the pelvis shortens. Let that space shorten, and then actually seal the rib cage down. Bring your hands underneath the shoulders, squeeze the elbows in, and the hands are going to float a little wider so it feels comfortable. Legs can do whatever's comfortable. It's okay if they externally rotate a little bit, or they can be squared down. Pelvis and rib cage connected to the floor. Start to slowly extend one vertebra at a time from the middle back, so the bottom of the rib cage. You're not going to lift very high. It's going to take a lot of strength. Be aware of the neck here, and then float back down. Let everything go. We're going to play with this for a few repetitions, and so each time you prepare to lift, take a moment to feel the pelvis connect, feel the rib cage connect, and then just very gently coax the upper spine away from the mat. Let the head gaze down. As you get more familiar with the feeling of the upper back, the hands can gently push just to help you lift and extend, but you don't want it to be forceful or intense. I overdid this, and it made my neck not feel great, so please take a lesson from my experience and don't do that. And just notice any new muscles waking up. We'll just do one or two more. Nice, everybody's moving so carefully. And then release down, press into the hands, and start to push the hips back towards the heels. Come onto the fingertips and push into one hand at a time to gently sway from side to side, belly resting on the thighs. And then float into tabletop with the hands over the shoulders, or with the shoulders over the hands, and paw out one hand at a time, just being really soft so that some extra weight can come to the pinky side of the wrist and there's not any pressure or discomfort in the wrists. Start to tap the feet down. In fact, tap one foot at a time and go as fast as you can. And then pause. That sure woke up the dog. And notice any tingling in the feet and the shins. And then gently tap the feet down just to round through the low spine for a nice gentle cat pose, awakening awareness at the lumbar vertebra. Keep that nice suction that occurs as the front of the body lifts to support the spine, and try to find your neutral pelvis here, rocking the pelvis forward. Try this a few times, finding the cat, keeping that support on the front of the spine. Do you mind lifting the camera just a little bit? And then letting that support lengthen out as the pelvis finds neutral. And I don't know how this feels for everyone else, but when I find it and I keep it, as I come to neutral, I feel so much support beneath my hips. I think it's the pelvic floor, and it feels really great in my hip sockets. So if you're noticing that and you want to explore it a little bit, it can be nice to just circle through the hips, but try not to lose the sense of support. And then grab your blanket, because we are doing a couple more kneeling things, and even if you don't have sensitive joints, it's just nice to give yourself some support. So blanket underneath the knees. We'll come back into this space, tops of feet flat, and we'll start rolling up towards a camel pose. And it will start with that cat pose that you found, walking the hands in, and then start to push the hips forward to gently roll up one vertebra at a time. And as you do that, imagine like little fingers walking up the front of your spine, and you can literally feel that pathway up each vertebra. Let the right hand float and then push down into the left knee to draw a big circle up and back. And then once you're reaching towards the wall behind you, reverse the circle, coming back the way you came, hands down. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So cat pose, and then hips press forward, and then keep pressing down into the right knee this time. Left arm floats and draws that rainbow shape towards the wall behind you. Repeat this a few times on your own, trying to feel the progression up the spine and the connection of opposite arm to opposite knee, or opposite hip to opposite shoulder. We'll be doing this in a moment again in a lunge pose. And so you can imagine as you twist to the left that the left knee is forward, just to prime that pathway. And the next time the hands come down, let's grab our blocks. I think that will be nice. Grab the blocks, maybe at a medium height or whichever height you like. Place them underneath the shoulders, and then step the left foot outside of the blocks. If you want to take a slight turn towards me just so it's easier to see what's happening, you're welcome to do that. I'm turning towards you because I want to see what's happening also. Before doing anything, let's look at the left foot. You can lift and lower the toes a couple of times. Shorten the space between the ball of the foot and the heel, almost like as if you were dragging a piece of paper towards you with your toes. And then anchor the big toe and just start to circle the knee around the ankle. Imagine waking up more support in the ankle, in the arch of the foot, in the knee. And then start to get curious about a space where the knee feels really supported and the hips feel really spacious. Give yourself permission to walk the left foot over to the left a little bit. I like a nice wide stance here, but you can do whatever feels best for you. I'm actually feeling called to lift my blocks a little higher, so feel free to try a few different heights. It's actually a nice way to wake up the arms and the shoulders, so let's just play with changing the levels of the blocks and noticing the sensation through the arms and how the arms connect into the shoulders, into the core. And then when you feel a space that's almost like, stay there. Imagine a quarter beneath the back knee and just start to circle the weight around that quarter. Notice how the whole body follows, but you don't have to think about it or make it happen. Make sure that front big toe is staying anchored so that foot is waking up and supporting you. Unless your foot feels tired and it's too much, then skip it. And let your circles change direction, and then let them get smaller and smaller until you find a place where there's equal weight in both feet. Come on to the tips of the fingers and then find the very, very gentle cat rounding of the spine. Push down into the right knee. Send the hips forward to slowly roll up, hands to the horizon. And as the right knee pushes down, let the left fingertips circle up and back. And then reverse directions, because that's the way we did it before. Hands come down to the block. This time tuck the back toes, slowly lift the back knee, and start to reach the left fingertips forward. Reach through the back heel and feel a lengthening from opposite foot to hand. And then just for fun, and only if it's fun, you can play with lifting the back knee and squeezing it into the chest. And if that's not fun, just skip it. We'll all set the back knee down, shift the weight into the right hand, and draw a big circle forward, up, and back. And then just like before, circle back the way you came. And we're going to repeat that whole sequence. So it starts with slowly rolling up, pushing into the back knee for the big lifted circle. And then going back the way you came, hands to block, back knee lifts. Reach the left hand forward. Option to extend through the left leg, but you don't have to. Get as long as you can through that left side body if it feels good. And then option to bring the knee into the chest, but only if it feels good. And then stick the leg back, lower the back knee. And this time, as we circle towards the front leg, option to start to kick and extend through that front leg as a Parivrtta Trikonasana warm-up. We'll do this one last time. So go back the way you came, bend the knee, slow roll up, pushing into that back leg to initiate a nice, spacious, resilient psoas on that right side. And then reverse, coming back the way you came. Lift the back knee, reach forward with the left arm. Option to extend left leg, pause here and breathe. And then if that knee lifting thing is going well, you can bring the shin forward, lower the hips, and take a twist. If the knee lifting was too much, it looks like everyone's got it. So let's just go for it. Nice, easy twist. So Fox, that's really cool what you're doing. So you can just bring the shin down. Yeah, and then lower the hips back and then twist away from me. But I liked what you were doing. As you twist away from me, push the legs down and notice if you can get a sense of twisting, not just through the spine, but through the outside of that left leg. And then imagine you're winding up through that left side, and we're going to release it, hands to blocks, and let the right leg shoot back effortlessly. Let's see how that goes. Nice. Okay. Start to turn your feet towards me and take your blocks for a little walk all the way to the other side. And then lower the left knee Look at your right foot this time and start to play with waking up the right foot, lifting the toes, squeezing the foot, circling the knee. Anything is fair game here. And as you explore, give yourself permission to adjust where the foot is, where the arms are. Start to notice the breath a little bit more. It's usually easier to notice the breath on the second side because you already know what you're doing physically. And then start to circle the weight around the back knee, just letting that left psoas start to come online in a really gentle way, nothing forceful. Circle the other way and let the circles get smaller and smaller. If you liked finding the cat rounding of the spine and then the neutral pelvis, feel free to try that and see if you can wake up that same support in the pelvis in this action. And then center the weight on both legs and slowly find the cat rounding of the spine. Press the hips forward to roll up. Extra pressure down into the left knee. Let the arms float. And then the right arm circles up and back. So you're twisting away from me. And then you ping pong the arm. Plant the hands. Slowly extend the back heel back, letting the feet separate. You can traction them apart a little and then reach the right arm forward. Shift the weight into the left hand and play with bringing the knee into the chest, only if it's fun, not if it doesn't feel good. Stick the foot back, lower the knee, and then start to twist away from me with the back knee down. And then reverse the circle about halfway, and we begin again. So it starts with the slow roll up, walking the awareness up your spine. Imagine that there's more and more space between each vertebra as you reach up, and then you find that nice spacious circle. You can even lean away from the left knee a little bit if it feels good. And then reverse the circle, hands to blocks. Lift the back knee, reach right arm forward, and then option to straighten the right leg or kick into the right leg if that feels good. With the weight in the left hand, bend the left knee, option to curl the knee forward. You can even wrap the arm around the shin and then send that foot back, back knee down. And now for our Parvrita Trikonasana warm-up, the right arm circles and start to kick into the right leg. So there's this sense of lengthening the whole right side of the body. And then reverse that, and we'll do one more time. So starting with the slow roll up, and if any of those movements were your favorite and you want to repeat them or stay there, pause and breathe, add on, please do. And then hands to the blocks, modified Parsvottanasana, the back leg lifts, right arm reaches, and maybe the front leg kicks a little bit extra. Try to keep equal weight in both feet. That can be really interesting for your core. And then option to, actually everyone did this, so you can bring the left knee in, lower the left shin, lower the left hip, and then twist away from me for a modified Urdhva Matsyendrasana with the feet nice and wide. And so you're twisting into the bent knee in the opposite direction. And then wind up that right side of the body. Slowly release. You can plant the hands and shoot the left leg back. And then walk the feet towards me. Hands follow with the blocks. And just bend into one knee at a time. Try to lengthen through the spine. If the wrists are sensitive, you can bring hands up to hips at this point. If it feels good, they can stay on blocks. And then try to keep equal weight in both feet as you bend one knee at a time. And just notice what changes in the adductors, in the deep core as you keep equal weight in both feet. Maybe it even helps you get more awareness of your spine. Heel toe the feet in a little bit, and hey, as long as you're folded forward, you can fold up your blanket and send it off to the side because we don't need it for the standing sequence. Heel toe the feet in just a little bit more. Bend the knees, drape the body on the thighs. In a moment, you'll have the option to roll the spine up if that feels safe and comfortable. But if that causes any pain or it scares you, you can always come up with a flat back. Anchor the big toes, rock the weight forward and back on the feet. And just notice how rocking the weight back into the heel starts to stimulate that pathway into the hamstrings and into the glutes. Crawl the arms up the thighs, press into the legs and the hands a little bit, and then find that cat rounding of the spine that helps you wake up support on the front of the vertebra, because we want lots of space between each vertebra here. And then gently bring the pelvis forward and take your time, let's say at least 3 breaths, to roll up. And if that doesn't feel good, come up your favorite way. That's totally fine. But imagine those little fingers walking up the front of your spine, letting you truly articulate one vertebra at a time. And that wakes up so much strength, so much space. And then let yourself just be. We've done a lot of good work. Notice how it feels to exist in standing. Enjoy the stillness, or if the body's craving a little bouncing or swaying, follow that impulse. And then go to the next track on the playlist and grab a sip of water if you need it. So our final sequence is a standing spiraling sequence, and you can move your blocks out of the way at this point. We've spent extra time waking up the pathway up the back of the legs and the hamstrings, and it's particularly important when we do Atlas twist to feel that support so there's not pressure in the knees. So I'll cue it, but I just want to plant that seed. You shouldn't feel like there's pressure or pulling here. If the muscles on the back of the leg are supporting, that knee's going to feel really bouncy and there's not going to be pressure. So if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. So let's start facing the right side of the mat, short edge of the mat, or you can face me. I'm going to face this way so you can see my spine, but feel free to face me if it's easier to follow. And start to shift the weight from foot to foot. And imagine you're like in warm sand and it's like pretty packed. And so as you shift the weight, you're slowly molding the sand into the shape of your foot, kind of like Hollywood, but better because you're in Hawaii and it's your feet. See if you can even imprint each of your toes. And then let the weight settle at center and just pause for a moment. I find this sequence strengthening in the legs, and I say that so you have a less is more approach. You're not like trying to make it harder, but almost try to make it easier. Anchor the big toes, relax the arms, and on an exhale, start to reach the hips back and sweep the hands forward, and then inhale back up. And take a few of these chair pulses and try to notice how the hands reaching forward allow you to reach the hips back more without tilting the pelvis forward. So a lot of people like arch the back here. Try to keep that neutral spine and you'll hopefully feel that deep support that we've been waking up in the buoyant core. And it doesn't matter how low you go, but you might notice that with all the work we've done in the hamstrings and the glutes, like that it feels really good to squat down, so you can play with that. And the next time you come into your squat, shift your weight into your right foot and keep the right leg and the pelvis completely static as you glide the left foot back. The left heel is going to stay lifted. And so take a couple sweeps like that to just find the place where the left foot enjoys resting. And then slowly extend both legs and lower the left heel just for a moment. Feel equal weight in both feet. Make sure the back knee, there's no pressure. Everybody's knees look really good. And then with your exhale, slowly start to lift through the back heel and see if you can feel that energy coming up into the hamstring and into the glute, and then set the heel down. Take a few of these, and less is more. You don't want your calf to get tired, but just try to feel almost like drawing energy up the back of the leg. And the next time you lift, slow motion, start to lower the heel towards the mat, but just keep it hovering like you've just got like a piece of paper between your heel and the mat. And now equal weight in both feet. Bend into the front knee. Imagine you're holding like a big, soft beach ball between the hands, a little bit of like pressure towards the beach ball. And then slowly start to bend the back knee as you rotate away from the back knee. Try to feel the rotation connecting from the knee to the hip all the way up the spine. And then push into the front foot and turn your feet towards me to give your legs a little rest. And we're going to try that a couple of times. If the arms ever get tired, you can swing them out. Start to rotate the feet back to where they came from, so that same side. Play with lifting the heel just a tiny bit and then bending the knee. Remember, we don't want to feel any pressure in the knee. We want to feel like all the support is coming through the back of the leg, and then rotate into the front leg for Atlas twist, trying to feel that even rotation up the knee to the crown of the head. And then twist towards me. This time, shift the weight into the left foot, and we're back in that warm sand. Start to drag your right toe in the sand and try to be really soft so it doesn't feel like all the muscles on the inner leg are like working really hard, and then drag the foot back. I really like to drag my arms opposite, so as my leg comes one way, my arms go the opposite. You can play with that. Notice how the standing leg might be getting warm. You might feel glute med. That's a deeper glute muscle that stabilizes the hip here. And the next time the toe drags in the sand over to the right, turn on the feet, re-entering that Atlas twist. And then turn back to center. Drag the foot across. Stay with the foot down, or option to let the foot get light, starting to float into dancing Shiva. You don't want to feel a lot of work here. You could, right? You could just like grip and lift. That doesn't feel great on the body. So set the toes down. We're going to do it a few times, and each time try to imagine that both sides of the legs are working. The outside of the leg is lengthening to lift you so that the groin doesn't have to do so much work. So the leg drags over to the other side into the twist. And you can start to play with the breath here, sometimes floating up into a balance on an exhale feels really supportive. There's no right or wrong, just get interested in what feels best for you. Inhaling into the twist is going to feel really light and supportive. Exhaling in the twist might feel strong. And the next time the leg lifts, or I should say drags across the body, pause there. If the leg's lifted, slowly set it down at the same angle. Let the back toes come out so there's no resistance in the back leg. Equal weight in both feet. Bend the front knee and let the whole left side of the body lengthen for Krishna pose. I like to do an arm float here, but you can also play the flute. And then sweep the arms over to the left, letting the toes turn. Walk back on your mat if you've wandered. Oh yeah, you can do a little cha-cha, that works. And then we'll do that on the second side. So let's start by doing nothing. Just imagine you're in Shavasana, standing up. Notice any warmth in the legs, and hopefully, because I definitely feel like I worked hard, but it feels really even in my ankles and my knees and my hips, both legs. So if you notice a certain joint talking a little louder, see if you can move with more smoothness and support on the second side. And let's start with those chair poses. And now that you know how much your legs are going to have to work, maybe you want to add in a little forward fold. Oh, actually, that does feel really good. So highly encourage the forward fold. It's just what my hamstrings were asking for. A little roll up is good too. Take your time. And then eventually we'll shift from our chair into the left foot, starting to glide the right foot back and then forth. And just like we did sideways, you can kind of play with the arms here. We didn't do that on the first side, but reaching with the arms, just like you did in chair pose, can help you get a little more reach through the legs. You can play with that. And the next time the right foot comes back, slowly lower the heel down. Look at the back foot. Everyone, amazing job. You placed your foot perfectly, which is why I love coming into that from chair pose. Give your left leg a little space if it needs. It can walk forward, and then just play with unweighting and weighting that back heel. So at first, maybe it's just a teeny amount. And you can always put your hands in your back pocket and notice what gently brightens as you lift the heel. I definitely feel a little brightness in my glutes, and if you don't feel it, it's not that anything's wrong, but it means you're probably overcompensating with the front of the leg. So feeling just that little tone is a nice indicator that that pathway is waking up for you. The next time you set the heel down, pause, so there's just a little bit of space between the heel and the floor. And then gently start to bend that back knee, bend the front knee, big beach ball. And as the back knee lowers, twist away from me towards that left knee. And then push in the front foot, turn the toes, spread out, and start to play between those two shapes. And each time you come into Atlas twist, try to feel how the twist is coming from everywhere in the body, all the way down to that back ankle. So the spine doesn't have to do a lot of work, but each vertebra of the spine gently participates in its own way. Maybe as you warm into it, the head wants to gaze back at the very, very end. Try to make sure as you twist, the front leg doesn't feel like it's doing more work than the back leg. The next time you twist open, let's shift the weight, little bend in that knee, weight in the heel so there's no pressure in that knee, and glide the foot over. Option to drag the hands opposite and just play with that space in front of you. Remember, less is more. You don't want to feel like any muscle in particular is doing a lot of work here, but rather your whole intelligent body working together. The next time the leg drags to the left, add on the twist. And then take a few of those. And whenever it feels right, you have the option to float the leg into the dancing Shiva. But honestly, I love just the leg drag, so feel free to stay there. Wow, so beautiful. Everyone is moving so uniquely in their own supportive way. The next time the leg drags across, do a little tiny float, if not higher, and then set the foot down at that angle. Back toes turn out a little bit, and we add on our side bend so that whole left side opens, and gently bend into the front knee, but like we've been practicing, try to feel this support through the back of the leg. option to bobble your head and play your flute. And then turn the feet away. And for this last moment, we are going to repeat on, actually no, I changed my mind. We're going to play with Parvrita Trikonasana because you're really warmed up for it. Let's have the option for our blocks here. So grab your blocks, place them inside of the right foot, and drag your left foot back just like you did before, beginning in Atlas twist towards the left. And then start to reach, let's put the right hand on the right hip, start to reach the left hand forward as you extend the right leg. And then bend the right knee and the left elbow and play with this a couple of times. And then don't worry, we're not going to take our blocks with us, but let's turn all the way to the other side. Bounce your right foot out so that you've got space for the Atlas twist. And then play with that right arm reaching and left leg extending on the second side. Going from a buoyant Atlas twist to this lengthening and reaching out. Trying to feel evenness so it's not just in the hip joint or not just in the hamstrings, but that whole body reaching and participating. And then spiral all the way back to the other side. This time, we're actually going to lower our back knee. Right foot outside of the blocks, hands to blocks. Start to circle the right arm. Actually, let me demo this one time because you're going to be twisting away from me. Circle the arm up and back, and as the arm comes up and back, kick into the front leg. So you're in that extended leg positioning at the peak of the twist. And you're going to play with that a couple of times. And again, try to feel evenness. Remember that twist from the very beginning of class. Oh, and you can start. I noticed everyone was doing it. You win an award, Kirtana. You were the only one. Remember the twist from the beginning of class where you felt the relationship between the rib cage and the hips? And that control where you weren't just like maxing out the spinal twist, but actually having the deep core connect the dots. And then for simplicity's sake, let's just bring the right knee in and bring the left foot forward. And I should have done this side first because then you would have been able to see me, but lesson learned. So same thing here, start to circle the right hand forward, up and back. And then at that peak of the reaching, let the left leg start to extend and then go back the way you came. And feel free to walk that foot further out. I love giving myself a lot of space here so it doesn't feel like I'm fighting my body. See if you can feel that sense of opening all the way up the front leg, outer front hip, into the rib cage, through the whole spine, and the head and arm are just like an extension. Nice. Everybody looks like moving poetry. Let's bring that leg in. And before we have the option to do Parvrita Trikonasana with the back knee lifted, let's just take a little pause. If Bhaktasana is enjoyable for you, that's a great option. If Bhaktasana doesn't feel good, sometimes a cat pose can be really nice. Can lay down on your belly or sit back on your heels. And wherever you are, imagine your breath just flowing over one vertebra at a time. And then when you're ready, you can roll up, step the right foot outside of the blocks, and then walk your back knee in a lot so you're in a nice short lunge. couple of options here. You can do what we just did, keeping the back knee down, in which case the knee can be further back. But if you want to come into Trikonasana with the back knee lifted, tuck the back toes under, hover the back knee, and as you go through the same process as before, slowly let the back leg extend. I like to keep the back heel up. It's not traditional Parvrata Trikonasana, but it feels real nice. Play with kicking into that front leg, but don't worry about straightening. Just try to feel the fullness of the opening in the right side of the body all the way up the spine. And then lower the right arm down. Walk the blocks all the way to the other side, turning the feet. And then we'll do the same thing. So little bend in both knees. And then reach. Option to lower the back knee. Do it the same way that we did before. Or start to circle the front arm forward, up and back, letting the left leg extend this time. Try to find equal weight in both feet. You might need to come up higher on the blocks or the fingertips to do that. And then reverse the circle, lower the hands. Two options here. You can do one more to each side if your body's like, I want more Parvrata Trikonasana. Or you can take that cool transition where the knee slid in, lower the hip, and come to seated. So I'll give you a moment to explore Parvrata Trikonasana or find seated, or people are doing cool stuff so you can play a little bit. If you're on the floor, cool. Yeah, it might be natural to go right into that Urdhva Matsyendrasana. Maybe you've had enough twisting and you just want to take a nice gentle Baddha Konasana. Stillness is a great option. And after you've done all the things, or one of the things, option to meet me in, you know the story about being a raindrop merging with the ocean? Feel like a little raindrop here, just tucking your chin into the legs and finding that balance point, maybe even closing the eyes. Try to feel the spine here, see if you can encourage a little extra support. And in the story, as the raindrop hurtles through space, so certain of its individuality, screaming, I'm a raindrop, I'm a raindrop. And then it lands in the ocean. You can imagine just that instant vastness. And maybe our version of this can be setting down the feet and starting to pull your body wide and spacious into ocean pose. Pause your music and grab anything you need for the most delightful Shavasana. Because we have two blocks, a nice option can be Baddha Konasana with the blocks supporting the upper thighs. I specifically like the upper thighs because then the hips are not in deep external hip rotation, and so they can really relax. And I think of this as like almost hugging my femurs into my hip socket, which I'm a huge fan of. Only do it if it feels amazing for you. And then feel the spine on the mat and just notice if your spine feels more colored in. Like you've turned on the lights and a new level of awareness has. 'Has 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 ' Let your breath just graze over the spine, and imagine the breath healing each part of your spine. And of course, the spinal cord is responsible for innervating the body. And so as the breath heals the spine, it so too heals the rest of you. As we rest here in Shavasana, I invite you to invoke the energy of that raindrop merging with the ocean, letting go of your limited being and dropping into the infinite vastness of your heart center, through which you merge with your own inner self. And see if you can let everything else go. And just go deeper and deeper into that space. Let yourself just be. And notice any tendency to be rushing back into the next thing. And see if you can release that urge. Then patiently observe your breath. Observe any space between the you right now and the you that came to class 75 minutes ago. And maintaining that space in a gentle way. Observe the process of breathing, gently beginning to move. Let those movements be nourishing and healing. And visualize yourself seated for meditation, just perfectly balanced, supported, your highest, most radiant form, just beaming. And be with that visualization until it inspires you. And let that inspiration carry you up to seated. You don't need to rush. And as you find your way into your meditation seat, just notice how your practice has prepared you. Perhaps the hips feel more supportive, spine feels lighter, and the mind feels calmer or more present. Maybe you feel more in tune with the inner ocean of the heart, your inner source of radiance and joy. And we'll use the next 10 minutes or so to dive into the space that our practice has opened up inside, the space that's always there, but through our practice we uncover it. And so just let the breath be natural and gentle. Let it mingle in the heart. And then just as gentle as the breath, you can silently attach the mantra Om Namah Shivaya. And each time you repeat this mantra in a genuine, real way, it takes you closer to that experience of merging with the ocean of universal consciousness. And so each repetition, feel or imagine feeling any sense of separation dissolving. Last night in satsang, Babaji spent a lot of time talking about our blissful inner nature, this well of joy inside. And let each repetition of the mantra guide you there. Each time you're in a thought, that's your raindrop form. And you might feel that limitation, that constriction. And see if you can also feel how it lessens and releases as you come back to the breath and open to the mantra. Try to literally feel the expansion that's available when you let that go. You can ever so gently circle the weight in the hips and imagine the spine almost like the shape of a funnel, just gently swaying. And let your awareness just walk up your spine and notice any sense of suppleness or ease. Can go in the opposite direction. You can be a little dramatic, letting the head gently flex the spine forward and then back. If it's late for you, maybe focus more on the forward. If it's early, you can focus more on the back, just letting that just gently energize you. Then we'll all meet with hands together at the heart center. And let's just close with a single Om and try to feel that reverberation connecting you to this expansive inner ocean. Breath in to chant. Thank you so much for practicing. Namaste. Great to see you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you soon. I hope your spines feel great. Aloha. Thanks for coming. Oh.